Marcus wiped down the mahogany piano in the executive lounge at 11:47 p.m., same as he did every Thursday night. The building was empty, silent. Just him and the ghosts of 1,000 business deals made in these halls. He'd cleaned this piano for 3 years. Never once sat down at it, but tonight something broke inside him. Maybe it was the letter from his daughter's school. Maybe it was the weight of 16-hour shifts finally catching up. Whatever it was, Marcus looked around the empty room, pulled out the bench and sat down. What happened in the next 7 minutes would shatter everything. His coworkers thought they knew about the man who emptied their trash cans. If you believe in second chances, hit that subscribe button. This story earns it. Marcus Chin wasn't supposed to end up here. 6 years ago, he taught music theory at a prestigious arts academy in Boston. He had tenure respect. A grand piano in his living room that his daughter, Emma, would sit beside, her small fingers mimicking his movements, while Chopin filled their home. Then his wife Sarah got sick. Stage 4 pancreatic cancer, the kind that moves fast and shows no mercy. The medical bills came like waves. Insurance covered maybe 40% if you were lucky. Marcus sold the piano first, then the house, then every piece of his former life, until all that remained was a 1-bedroom apartment in Queens and a daughter who'd stopped smiling. Sarah died on a Tuesday morning in April. Emma turned 8 the following week. Marcus found work at Whitmore Financial Group 3 months later. Night shift janitorial. It paid $14 an hour and came with health insurance for Emma. He told himself it was temporary, just until he got back on his feet. That was 3 years ago. His co-workers barely registered his existence. He was wallpaper furniture, the invisible man who made sure their wastepaper baskets were empty, and their conference rooms smelled like lemon pledge. They had no idea that the guy pushing the mop cart had perfect pitch, that he'd studied under Leonard Bernstein's protege, that he could sight read Bach like most people read street signs. Thursday, November 16th. Started like any other shift. Marcus clocked in at 6 p.m. The office was doing its usual evening exodus. Junior analysts streaming toward the elevators with their North Face jackets and their ambitious stares. He nodded at a few of them. Most looked straight through him. By 10 p.m., the 40th floor was deserted, except for the hum of the HVAC system and Marcus's cleaning cart squeaking down the hallway. He entered the executive lounge around 11:30. This was his favorite room to clean, honestly. Florida ceiling windows overlooking the Manhattan skyline, leather chairs that probably cost more than his monthly rent, and that Steinway Model D grand piano sitting in the corner, like a beautiful, untouchable dream. Marcus had Googled it once. $175,000, the CEO, Richard Whitmore, had it brought in 2 years ago. Claimed he played Marcus had worked here 3 years and never once heard a single note come from that instrument. It was a status symbol, an expensive paperweight. Tonight, Marcus finished dusting it and found himself just staring. His fingers twitched. Muscle memory from another lifetime trying to surface. The letter from Emma's school was folded in his back pocket. She'd been selected for the youth orchestra program. First chair violin, full scholarship. His daughter had inherited his gift, his passion, everything good he'd once been. The letter also mentioned a parents' recital. Emma wanted him to play something, show her classmates what real musicianship looked like. But Marcus hadn't touched a piano in 3 years. What if he'd forgotten? What if his fingers stumbled? What if he proved to his daughter that he really was just a janitor, now that the man she remembered was gone for good? He sat down on the bench before he could talk himself out of it. The leather was smooth, expensive. The keys gleamed under the track lighting. Marcus placed his hands on the keyboard. C major scale just to feel it again. His fingers moved. The sound that emerged hit him like a physical force. Rich, clear, perfectly tuned, this instrument was extraordinary. He started playing Debussy's Clair de Lune, slowly at first, testing himself. But the music had been waiting inside him all along, coiled tight like a spring. His hands remembered everything his brain had tried to forget. The melody filled the empty room, spilled out into the hallway, floated through the ventilation system. Marcus closed his eyes and just played. What Marcus didn't know, Richard Whitmore was still in his office. The CEO had been reviewing quarterly reports for the last 4 hours, surviving on black coffee, and the kind of stress that kills men in their 50s. He'd almost packed it in around 11 when he heard it music. Piano music coming from his executive lounge. Whitmore stood up confused. The building should be empty. Had someone broken in? Was this some elaborate corporate espionage situation, where thieves announced themselves with DBS? He walked down the hallway and stopped outside the lounge entrance. Through the frosted glass, he could see a figure at the piano, small hunched shoulders wearing the gray uniform of the cleaning crew. Whitmore's first instinct was anger. How dare one of the janitors touch his piano? That instrument cost more than they made in 2 years. But then he actually listened. This wasn't someone plunking out chopsticks. This was extraordinary professional. The kind of playing you heard at Carnegie Hall, not in a corporate office at midnight. Whitmore pushed open the door. Marcus's eyes snapped open. His hands froze mid-phrase. The two men stared at each other. "I'm sorry," Marcus said immediately. Standing up so fast, the bench scraped backward. "I shouldn't have, I was just—" "I'll go wait." Whitmore held up one hand. His voice was quieter than Marcus expected. "How long have you been able to play like that?" Marcus looked at the floor. 23 years, sir, you're—" Whitmore paused, trying to process this. "You're the janitor, Marcus, right? You work nights, yes, sir. And you play like that, it wasn't a question." Marcus didn't know how to respond. Whitmore walked closer, studying Marcus like he was seeing him for the first time. "Where did you train? Berklee College of Music? Then Curtis Institute for Graduate Work?" The CEO's eyebrows shot up. "Curtis was one of the most selective music schools in the world. And you're working here as a janitor?" "Yes, sir." Marcus's throat was tight. "I have a daughter, she needs health insurance. Steady income this job provides that." Whitmore was quiet for a long moment. Then he said something that surprised them both. "Would you play something else, please? I'd like to hear more." Marcus sat back down. Hands shaking slightly, he started with rock. Mononoff's Prelude in C-sharp minor dark. Turbulent 3 years of grief poured into black and white keys. Whitmore sank into one of the leather chairs and just listened. Then Marcus shifted into something lighter. George Gershwin's Rhapsody in Blue. The music that made you believe in New York City, in possibility, in the idea that broken things could be made whole again. His fingers danced, sweat beaded on his forehead. He forgot where he was, forgot the man watching him, forgot everything except the conversation between his hands and the piano. When he finished, the silence was absolute. Whitmore was crying, not sobbing, just quiet tears running down his face. "My father," Whitmore said softly, "used to play that piano before he died. That's why I bought it, not as decoration." As memory, he wiped his eyes. "But I can't play, never learned. And hearing it sit silent for 2 years has been its own kind of grief." Marcus nodded. He understood grief. "I need to tell you something," Whitmore continued. "I've been running this company for 15 years. Built it from nothing, made myself obscenely wealthy in the process. And somewhere along the way, I stopped seeing people really seeing them. You've worked here 3 years, and I couldn't have picked you out of a lineup." He stood up, walked to the window, looked out at the glittering city. "That's unacceptable, and it's going to change." Marcus wasn't sure what that meant, so he stayed quiet. Whitmore turned around. "Here's what I want to do. I want to set up a scholarship fund for employees and their children. Anyone working here who has talent being wasted because of circumstance, because life knocked them down and they're just trying to survive. Marcus's breath caught, and I want you to run it. You'll work in HR, evaluate applications, make sure the money goes where it's needed. Full salary, benefits. The works." Whitmore paused. "You'll also play that piano once a week. Lunch hour concerts for the staff. Remind all of us that there's more to life than quarterly earnings." Marcus couldn't speak, his vision blurred. "One condition," Whitmore added. "Your daughter Emma, right? I saw the photo on your card. She gets a music scholarship too. Full ride through high school and college. Wherever she wants to go now." Marcus was the one crying. 3 months later, Marcus played at Emma's school recital. He performed Clair de Lune on a slightly out-of-tune upright. In the school auditorium, Emma sat in the front row, violin case on her lap, smiling wider than he'd seen since Sarah died. When he finished, she ran up on stage and hugged him so hard his ribs hurt. "You're back," she whispered. "You're really back," and he was... The Whitmore Foundation Employee Scholarship Program. Launched in January, they funded 17 people in the first year. A security guard going to nursing school, a receptionist with a mathematics degree working on a PhD, a paralegal who wrote poetry that made you believe in language again. Marcus interviewed every single applicant personally, and every Thursday at noon, He played piano in the executive lounge. Whitmore was always there. So were dozens of employees who'd learned that the man they'd overlooked for 3 years was extraordinary. Here's what nobody tells you about rock bottom. Sometimes you have to break completely before you can rebuild into something stronger. Marcus lost everything: his career, his wife, his identity. He became invisible, but invisibility is temporary talent. Doesn't disappear just because life gets hard. It waits coiled and patient, ready to remind you who you really are. All it takes is the courage to sit down at the piano. If this story moved you, share it with someone who needs to hear it. And remember, the people you overlook might be exactly who you need to see. Sometimes the janitor is the most important person in the building. You just have to listen,